So you better have a smooth hiring process because it's going to convey confidence to your candidate, and your candidate, who is now an employee, is going to convey confidence to that prospect that you should buy with me. The conversion process is going to be smooth. It's the biggest telling indicator of how the experience for the customers are going to be.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Your Customer, Your Success. My guest today is Alex Grant. Alex is the Senior Vice President of Direct Field Sales at North, one of the country's leading payments and merchant services companies, where he builds and develops high-performing field sales teams. Before North, he spent time at Heartland in senior sales leadership, recruiting, coaching, and scaling sales talent across the payments industry. Alex has earned a reputation as a leader who develops people, drives performance, and is not afraid to say the things most operators only think privately. And that's what we love on the show. One of those things is a focus of today's conversation, that the way a company hires is the most honest signal of how it actually runs. Alex, welcome to the show.
I'm thrilled to be here. How you doing, Gary?
Doing great. This is going to be quite the interesting conversation because I love this topic. I absolutely love this topic. And it's been, I've had a bit of a roller coaster ride through my career with hiring and interview processes and things. So I just love your take on things. We had a great conversation to introduce ourselves to each other. And I think it's going to be a really valuable episode for the audience. So let's get right to it, my friend. You've spent years analyzing data behind your own hiring decisions, and you've come to a conclusion a lot of leaders are uncomfortable saying out loud, that hiring is essentially intelligent guessing.
Yeah, I wish it was purely data driven. Wouldn't that make it easy? Just look at the data, look at these characteristics, matches our organization. Let's hire this woman. The problem is that when we first think about this, Gary, the interview process, but then from a candidate's journey, the candidate process is candidly a lot like when you first make a friend or when you're first dating. You're putting on that first date persona, and it might not be the same person after you get a little bit further in the relationship. So that doesn't mean, by the way, that only leans towards the side of the candidates. There's also the first date persona of a lot of these companies. And so when I say that hiring is guessing, think about dating. I mean, just swipe once and you're done. You know what's up. You saw the data. Am I wrong? Like, why do we have these memberships going on for months? Because interpersonal communication, all the different asterisks on that make up that person in their background with who they are and who they say they are. It's the honeymoon. We're in the honeymoon process right now, and the fact is that you've got to do your best in the interview process. You do need to use some of the data, but that data will always be thrown off from time to time based on the fact that you've got humans involved with personalities, and they know that they're being judged. And in reverse, the hiring manager and hiring team knows they're being judged. It's like, what do you get after the relationship is locked down or the sale is closed? Why do we have a divorce rate? It's the same thing as to why we have employees not making it at companies. It goes both ways.
Yeah, I love that analogy of the dating thing. We used to actually have a saying: you date your investment manager and you marry your custodian. Most people have no idea what that means, but in my business, it's the same thing. You kind of date your investment manager because you only talk to him a few times a year, but you're with your custodian all day, every day. And I learned that a long time ago, and that divorce is messy. So
Right?
interesting. So, well, given that, I think what we really want to talk about today is, what does the way a company runs its hiring process actually tell us about how it operates with its customers? I think that's what we're trying to get at here.
I like that you ask it from that perspective, because a lot of these are often focused on, like, what do candidates do wrong, or candidates are the
Yeah.
problem, or candidates. Listen, it goes both ways. So
Mhm.
what it reveals about a company on how they behave in the hiring process, I think that's something that I wish I had awareness of 20 years ago when I was interviewing for jobs. But I believe that, and unfortunately, I've already used some of the analogies, but I believe that the way a company interviews their candidates, if the candidate takes the job, it's actually the beginning of their training. So let's say they have a 3-step interview process. I'm making that up. 3-step interview process. If the company throughout that 3-step interview process is unorganized, or what happens next? Or wait, I'm sorry, who am I supposed to interview next? Where do we go? Oh, you're going to figure that out. It's actually foreshadowing as to how your experience will be if you actually get hired there. It's critical that you know that. I know everyone wants just a job. Yeah, I got to get a job. I got to get a job, but you want to get the right job. And so many people will tell you, Gary, I want to make sure wherever I go has great training. That is foreshadowing how they're going to train you. It's foreshadowing the onboarding experience. If it's a mess in the interview process, or they're like, well, we'll get back to you. We got to figure out who you're going to talk to next. Those little subtleties, even if said professionally, we're going to figure out, which is said a lot when you're interviewing for jobs. That is most likely how your training's going to be. Oh, they're going to figure it out. We'll see how it goes. Oh, we'll see who's available this week. I think it's a red flag.
Right. Well, if there is training at all, number one,
right.
we'll get there.
Right.
But number two, it's to me, it's the organization, the coordination, the seamlessness of that experience as a candidate that really tells me something about how that company is run. And when you see it at a smaller company, and then you compare it to somebody large, like a large financial service company that actually does a good job of it, it tells you kind of exactly everything you need to know about what's going on there. Because if they can't get this straight, what is really going on internally? And to me, it's the delays, the cancels, how long the process takes, that it's painful for candidates. And even the experience of interviewing when you're, I call it like being on the, in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, when you've got a panel of people coming at you trying to poke holes in everything rather than having a business conversation and understanding who you are, how you can help, and letting you tell them how you can help. It just kind of, I shake my head. So I've been in those situations, and luckily I know enough to do that. I'm interviewing them as much as they're interviewing me, is my approach. Yeah.
Yeah, and if a business doesn't behave like they're being interviewed as well, it's almost, are they too full of themselves? Or are they just such a leader that everyone's begging to work for them? I don't know. It doesn't seem respectful, because it really does go both ways. I mean, yeah, they need to fill the role, but you need to fill the role that's the best match for your personality, your skills, everything that you bring to the table. So, yeah, and maybe it's pompous. Like, oh, everyone's desperate for a job. There are great jobs out there in mass quantities. You've got to know that this is not a time to be fearful, to ask questions. You're allowed to ask questions of a candidate. Here's a red flag. If you're asking questions along the way, and that's taken with some level of distaste, maybe you found the wrong place.
No, true. True. We'll get that in a second. But the length. I thought of this as I was talking. The length of these processes are ridiculous. Not only what I've been through, but what I see out there in the LinkedInosphere, as I call it. How long should it take? How long do you see it taking? How long should it take? What are your thoughts on just that painful, slow, torturous process as a candidate where you're sitting there waiting and you don't know if you're being ghosted or if you're done?
It's a great question, and it's probably not black and white. There probably is some variation depending on the responsibilities of the job. But I think for a high-performing sales position, a high-performing corporate job, I think it is fair to expect as a candidate a clear 45, give or take a few days, 45-day hiring process. Consider if you're taking longer than that. What are you looking for at this point? I mean, how many rounds are we going through? Yeah, it's got to be around 45 days. Again, give or take. Maybe you're going to tell me something that I've never heard of, or a job that requires international travel, and there's international leadership as well as American leadership. Okay, then maybe we extend it. But I think 45 days is fair.
Right. But I hear it's going out to 90, 2, 3, 4 months all the time. Right. And what is really going on there? And there's a cost to that delay, isn't there?
There's a huge cost. And there's also the cost of the candidate that wants the job actually finding another job between your 90-day interview process. So there's a cost there. And then the company starts telling themselves like, oh, no one wants to work. Well, maybe they do. They just want to work this quarter. Okay, that's a big problem, is that the interview process tells the story that no one wants to work. Well, your interview process is 120 days. Give me a break. So what's going on there? I think it's something that we've already hammered a little bit. They don't really have a process. It's like, who's available to put this poor individual in front of our firing squad today, rather than a unified organization that knows when we want to fill this role, all parties have to get on the calendar for this concise interview process. And it even stems to this. Some places have, let's say, an 80-day interview process. And then after that, they have another 40-day HR boarding process. I've seen these too, where they just take absolute incredible amount of time. And
Oh, with the background check and stuff?
listen,
Yeah.
background checks suck. And that one is really a level set,
Right.
because we do depend on Uncle Sam at various counties from where you've lived to do their part. But I'm saying companies pile on top of that in a way that it's okay, maybe not another 40 days, but it's definitely another 3 or 4 weeks after you've already been given the job, and maybe you've resigned from your current place. Now you've got a new employee coming on, and they almost already have bad blood, because it's like, how long is this going to take for me to even work here?
And yeah, and then there is that risk that they're going to get an offer from somebody else, and then they say, well, what happened here? But you're in the meantime, that person sitting there waiting, it's like pulling off the Band-Aid hair by hair. If you're really looking for a job and really looking for work, it could be quite painful for that person. I know there's stuff you need to go through. There's process, there's procedure. There's the budget, is getting things approved. The bigger the organization, the more that is. But why do you think it takes so damn long? I mean, is it just they're not thinking of it? They're not focused on it. They don't have a process. All of the above. I just think it's awareness too of what you're doing to the potential candidates.
Some people simply lack process. The second thing I would tell you right now is that some people are scared to make decisions. They want to find that perfect candidate. Now, listen, Gary, I don't want to sit here on some high horse like I was always efficient in my recruiting. I was one of the problems. And I wasn't so much that I strung you along forever, but early in my interviewing of sales candidates, I used to say no to way too many people. And the reason I would say no is the reason I actually think most people take too long and extend their process. I was at least respectful and I said, you're not a fit. Other people will not say no, but they won't say yes. And that's sometimes where the extension of the interview process comes from. And they're looking for this story they've created of this ideal candidate with this one background that worked with Joe over there on the West Coast team, because we saw him get hired and he worked at that company before with that amount of tenure. And now we've created a story that we need exactly Joe. Here's the irony. We end up hiring another Joe on the East Coast with the same tenure, with the same company background, same age, all that stuff. And then he doesn't work out. And now your mind is blown, because going back to one of the opening things we said, look, it's intelligent guessing. You want to use the data that you're presented. But when I say that I was one of the problems back in the day, I used to look for that perfect person. I could only hire the perfect person. And it's interesting, but I was really good at interviewing. I was really good at identifying good candidates. But I had created this situation in my head where, this guy's got a yellow flag on this one thing. And I really had a great leader that said to me, Alex, you're struggling right now growing your team and hiring, all these red flags when I look at your write-ups. But if you ever go critique yourself when you joined the organization, how many red flags do you think we had on you? And I can be very honest, Gary, I should have just been covered in yellow paint. I was a yellow flag, and someone made an intelligent gamble or guess on me, and it worked out. So, I really had that, an awesome leader that I love, smack me upside verbally and say, Alex, think about the chance we took on you and look where you've gone. Why don't you start offering that to people and reduce your red flag where it's probably like a green to yellow flag. And I was worried about, as a hiring manager, being accused of failing my new hires. I wanted to beat those numbers of 50% of them working out. The way I was going to do it was going to hire perfectly. The funny thing was, the way it helped that speech from my boss and looking at my own data, I had about the same 50% of them making it. I just hired less people. And so that actually gave me a smaller candidate pool to recruit from. And then I had smaller growth in my division rather than taking chances on people and exiting people if it doesn't work out, because you don't want people to be hostage to the wrong job. That's disrespectful as well.
Yeah. This is it's so interesting because I always call this phenomenon Tom Brady hunting. And it's funny, you know, it gets kind of
Have
like
fun,
dating.
right? Have
Well,
fun doing that.
Well, that's you're looking for the Tom Brady, like the perfect, awesome Hall of Fame caliber person, because we need an A+ rock star. And my question is always, now I never ask this exactly on an interview, but why are you Bill Belichick? Why are you the Patriots? Are you really the Patriots of the past, you know, whatever, 20 years with 6 Super Bowl rings? So to me, they're always looking for that perfect person. And they're also, the other thing I think they're doing, tell me if you agree with this, they're looking for the exact job. So unless the person does the exact job, the only perfect person is your actual employee who's doing the job right now, because you're writing the job description exactly as the employee doing it there. So it's impossible to actually get somebody to cover that unless they're doing the exact same job somewhere else at the competition. So the
Which is
next
rare
question,
for it to be identical.
Identical.
Even
Right.
with competing companies, they have a different go-to-market.
Right. They're a little different. Even in my industry, same thing. It's a little bit different here and there, which is fine. It's transferable, which is what we're talking about. But it's like they're looking for the perfect person with all these things, and 5 years of this, 10 years of this, and you add it all up, and they're looking for somebody that has to be 173 years old with all that experience.
You know what I think they're also looking for? I think they're looking for a shortcut to their realization that they don't train too well at the current place. So if we think, if I secretly think our training's no good, then I've got to hire someone from the industry. And I even tell myself a story. The only people that make it here are the ones from the industry. Interesting enough, we did have data on that. I do have data on that to this day. And when we hire industry candidates like a competitor, they actually have like 5% better chance of making it. I didn't say 20. I didn't say 30. I said about 5.
It's
So
not much.
It's not much. It's not enough to keep telling you that story, that you must hire that one cookie cutter person.
And I think that's a lot of the problem. Is it's gotten so functionalized. Every role is so specific. The requirements are so rigid and so kind of chock full of, you must have this, and then you're looking for the red flags as the hiring manager. And I think sometimes what they do is they keep that person that's good. There might be some concerns. They keep them on the burner while they're looking for Tom Brady. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't realize it, but you're their plan B,
The plan
based
B.
on this magical Tom Brady criteria. And Gary, did Tom Brady even have Tom Brady criteria when he was drafted in what, the 5th, 6th round?
I think it was 7th. I forget what it is.
Right?
Like
it was
6 or 7.
Right.
Nobody knew
So
who
did
he was.
he even have Tom Brady criteria?
No.
Probably not. But you're looking, it's crazy. So look, there are red flags that both candidates should look for, and there's red flags that employers should look for. It goes both ways, though. It goes both ways. Like, we can't just point the finger at one side. Both are part of this dance, if you will.
Yeah. So give me, we've talked about a bunch of them, but give me a quick summary about, think of maybe something we haven't said, a red flag for a candidate. And then we'll do a red flag for a hiring manager.
All right, so a red flag for a candidate needs to be when you're in the interview process and you're learning about the job, because there's times where you're allowed to ask questions. Ask them what their value prop is.
Mm-hmm.
I know that sounds really basic, but why is your product or suite of products better than the rest? One thing you need to look for is passion. It's appropriate for the hiring manager to be passionate. I'm glad you asked that question, Gary. Let me tell you why our product is the best. There's got to be some energy, even if, because of the training that you haven't had yet, you don't exactly understand all the differences between, but you've got to see that visual passion. It can't just be, here's one. We're the cheapest. And that is a very popular go-to-market by a lot of companies. I worry for that sales candidate at that moment, learning that their product is the cheapest. I worry about the sustainability of that job actually being more than a job and actually being a career. Because if you're just cheap in today's world of technology, you don't think the others are going to catch up one day? And my only value prop was we're cheap.
Right.
So red flag, you got to find some enthusiasm from the hiring manager. You got to make sure you're not just the cheapest. And I think a third, and I'll leave you with this one, is ask if you can speak to some happy, successful, current people at the organization doing the role that you're interviewing for. The first red flag of that specific is, what if they say no? I would say you probably know the answer of what you should do. And if they don't say no, they just never deliver on it, which is the same as a no.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think you politely run from something like that. And then if you get those individuals have a chance to actually speak to another person that's going to do your job, whether it's sales, any role, find someone that would be my peer. This is my advice when you have that opportunity to cash in on it the most for authenticity, because they actually know they don't want to be caught as the reason you said no to the job. You got to be mindful of that. If you want honesty from them, you can't lead with whatever questions are really on your mind. Ask the generic company questions. So, is the company growing like they said? Ask all the generic ones that honestly you're just fake taking notes. You don't even care. Get them 3 or 4 in, and then kind of give it your pause and just say, hey, listen, finding the right fit is really important to me. I know it's important to you guys. Are you happy here? It's really interesting after, don't do it as your opener, because then they're going to give you a generic answer.
Mm-hmm.
But after you've kind of created a little bit of relationship, you've gone back and forth, ask them authentically if they're happy. Ask them if they like it here. Do you like it here? Why do you like it here? Engage their answers. And if you've been, most people these days are almost becoming professional interviewers. It's interviewers. It seems like you have to go through so many of these. You'll get a good read on people. Again, don't open with those authentic questions. Give it question 3 or 4, and what you find can be riveting. I've had people say it's changed my life. I've had people say, oh yeah, it's fine here. You're like, it's fine here.
You'll get really the kind of hedge answer. Yeah. Because you got to say, it's nice. I like it. It's been very good for me. Yeah. And the kind of half-hearted answer. That's excellent. So in fairness here, because this is very kind of candidate centric, which is what I'm usually kind of about. But what are the red flags for hiring managers legitimately? Because we kind of been a little tough on the hiring process here.
Yeah. And we should be fair and tough and fun, explore both sides. But listen, if you're a hiring manager, I think a red flag is when you ask a candidate, and again, I've spent most of my time hiring people in sales or in recruiting teams, and recruiting teams are really a version of sales, my opinion. One of the red flags our hiring managers have is when throughout the interview process, a candidate identifies, however it comes to the surface, that they're not going to be ready to talk about our product suite or our solutions until they know everything about them. And the reason why that's such a red flag, you might be thinking, oh, Alex, what, do you not train your people? Hold on real quick. You and I both have some sort of a smartphone, an iPhone, a Droid. If you're selling droids, and I don't sell droids, but just use that as an analogy, as most people know what an iPhone is. If you're selling an iPhone and I'm buying an iPhone, I probably am buying it for like 3 apps, like my email, my text, 2 or 3 of my favorite apps. I have a feeling that iPhone has 25,000 other features I've never used. So especially in a world of software and software sales, for a candidate to not be able to at least engage with clients before they know everything, it is a major red flag. And that could apply to so many things outside of sales. In other words, Gary, are you completely paralyzed until you've read the entire manual? Oh, you are. Now, you wouldn't ask it like that. But you've got to watch the red flag, because candidates will specifically say that to you. They'll say, listen, I can sell anything. I just need to know everything about a product first. It's like, so you're going to be selling in 2029? Like the way the software is these days, you got about 3 years. And then, by the way, we're on version 10, even though we're selling version 5 right now. It's a big red flag. Candidates, it's like you're hiring the wrong person at this time, because you've got to be able to flow with it. And you've got to be able to say to someone that potentially you're selling, that's a great question. I don't know the answer. I'll get right back to you with that one. What else? Like, there's a way to navigate not knowing an answer and still professionally getting back to them. I'd say another red flag, if you're a hiring manager, after you've offered them the job, how quickly do they complete their tasks? I actually believe if I'm judging candidates, that is one of the highest indicators of success to someone I've already. Check it out, Gary. We've got someone. At my organization, we had 6 people start today. Actually, we had 6 people start today, and I remember we go over our candidates with the leaders, and we all say, "Hey, what did you like the most about this candidate? What's your yellow flag?" And the managers have learned there's such a leading indicator by how quickly, Gary. Let's say I'm hiring you, and HR sends your agreement and stuff. There's the candidates that find a way to sign that in an hour or less, and there's the candidates that find a way to sign it within the next few days. Gary, there is no question if that's the only takeaway that someone had never heard of from our entire time here today. After you offer the job, how quickly they fill it out, go write down who makes it and who doesn't. It's shocking.
Really?
They want it. They
Yeah.
want it.
Yeah.
I didn't make it in this industry because I'm a genius. I made it because I wanted it. I didn't come here with a lot of knowledge. I'm like, let's go. Give it to me. I want the job. And then I started to prove to you that I wanted the job because, I mean, you had the hiring managers, you had the HR team send something out to me within an hour. I was already back at my home office. I was filling it out. Of course I was. And that's like, is this job my plan B? Am I waiting for something else?
Yeah.
Watch out how quickly they respond with all that HR stuff.
That is just, it works in reverse in the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they could be doing the same thing. That is interesting because it is, as a candidate, is the responsiveness usually is telling to me that if they're interested in, keep going in the next round, it's usually within a day or two, maybe a week. They'll say like, hey, the hiring manager is on vacation next week, and they're fine, and then they'll follow up. But that's all I ask for is the communication. But when you get the radio silence, it's usually never a good sign, and
It's not a good sign either way, right? It's not a good sign either way.
Either way, interesting. Yeah, no, I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah, like we're judging you after we offer you the job. If we have to call you, we'll give you one call. We have to call you 2 days later because we can tell that you haven't logged in. I'm like, I'm not trying to be rude, Gary. We'll be straight up. But in my experience, people that haven't even opened the HR initial paperwork in 2 days, maybe you don't want this job. Are we your plan B? I think that both sides need to be respectfully direct throughout the process. And if we're 2 days in and you haven't opened it, because guess what? Sometimes I'm wrong with my data, Gary, and you're like, hey, I appreciate you calling me that out. I had this family emergency happen. I will get that done today. Like that absolutely happens. But not everyone's having family emergencies.
Right. Interesting. All right. So I've got a whole bunch of questions I got to get to, but I've got to tie it in. We are, after all, a client-centric, customer experience, customer success focused show. So the whole point of this is, what is the link, in your view, between how the company treats its candidates to how that same company eventually treats its clients?
I think it is the biggest direct correlation of any analogy or direct correlation we can refer to. Think about this. If the hiring process is a mess, onboarding a new employee is a mess, are you telling me that once I come work for you, we're going to implement our software professionally and cleanly and swiftly? One of the biggest unspoken objections in software sales, and I mean it really is often never said, when you're giving your presentation, the client is thinking, oh, I'd love to buy what Gary, this is in their head, I'd love to buy what Gary's selling here today, but I'm just really worried about downtime between my current software and this better software. That's what they're thinking. And a candidate is thinking, I do need a new job with a better career path, but I'm worried about that transition because I really can't go anywhere between like that week to week. So many people are paycheck to paycheck, even people that make great money. So the hiring process is a direct correlation, even if it doesn't feel that way, even if it's not bluntly said, to what a candidate starts to believe in regarding the products they're going to sell. So if we have a jumbled onboarding for you, they're already thinking, oh gosh, what's it going to be the first time I implement it? The candidate already has that trepidation. You, like we said, the hiring process is the beginning of their training if they get the job. So you better have a smooth hiring process because it's going to convey confidence to your candidate, and your candidate, who is now an employee, is going to convey confidence to that prospect that you should buy with me. The conversion process is going to be smooth. It's the biggest telling indicator of how the experience for the customers are going to be.
And do you feel most companies recognize this? Because I sure don't.
I would say they absolutely do not understand the direct correlation. We speak about it openly. Throughout my years selling and leading sales teams, 20 years, we've had our roller coaster of that. Different companies took over the last organization I was at. It gets better, and then it flatlines. Maybe it has a dip. Maybe it gets better. And there is a direct correlation between that onboarding process and if candidates make it. It really, that, by the way, why do candidates make it? Because the customers feel that confidence. I don't think so. I don't think there's been a lot of official studies. I don't officially have a study. We used to chart everything like, why do you think our training is the same? Why do you think our candidates are dipping right now? And like turning over every stone. We have absolutely come to the conclusion, jumbled hiring process, it's going to reduce closing ratios.
That's really that is fascinating because I don't. It's interesting because I'm more customer focused. I don't think of it in terms of sales and things like that, like closing ratios.
All right, but you're customer focused. So you take a job and you're the customer while you're taking the job. And it's crummy. And now you're going to go say, let me tell you how everything's going to be great, customer. They're connected.
Yeah.
They're all connected. Let's go back to our first thing we said.
Yeah.
Or I said, my silly analogy about dating.
Yeah.
Well, you have a first date. It's a train wreck, whatever that means. And then you think, you know what? Let's have another one. They'll probably get better. You can't forget that. Even if the relationship has an opportunity to progress, even if they're disconnected, you carry the baggage of the first and second date. That's why there isn't a third. It's all connected.
Yeah, it is, and it is interesting. I just don't understand why it's so hard to grasp or why this is such a struggle. Because it is. Look, this is what we talk about on the show all the time, so it's fairly obvious. I almost feel like I'm repeating myself over and over in every episode, but I do this because just what he said. It's not that connection isn't there. It's not out there, and I can't grasp why.
When I joined this organization about 1 year ago, I was holding my breath because everything was going so perfectly. The interview process was awesome. It was perfect, concise, perfect amount of time. I met with the right people. Everyone was prepared. And I was like, oh, please be smooth with your electronic onboarding and HR and everything. And Gary, I felt like, all right, I made the right decision when I just ripped through the HR process. I did my normal stuff, but who knows what this big company is going to do. And when they went through, I'm like, I absolutely made the right decision. That's after years of critiquing our own at my last organization. But I came here and I just spun right to the finish line when it came to the electronic onboarding. I was like, okay, this company has their act together. They care about the things that some places don't.
Amazing. So, all right, I had a whole bunch. We're almost out of time on the traditional interviews part of the show. I've got a whole bunch of other questions I want to get to.
Let's do the non-traditional part of the show. Is that where you're leading me to?
The segments. We'll get to the segments in a minute because I got a good one for Doesn't Hold Water for you. But let's talk about sometimes where it doesn't work with an employee. You've hired them. I think the instinct is sometimes you need to let them go. There's a lot of layoffs going around. But one thing I did talk to you about that I wanted to get on this episode is sometimes you could just redirect that person rather than getting rid of them. So tell me about a time you redirected someone out of a role you hired them for and into something that actually fit better rather than just saying, it's not working out, buddy. See you later. Here's the door.
It's almost a conversation that never happens, let alone a practice that never happens. But you hire someone, they've got the right attitude. They've got the appropriate amount of enthusiasm. They are doing all tasks asked of them without delay. But sometimes things just don't click. There's so many nuances to any new role. It doesn't have to just be sales. It could be a corporate role. And typically, as you were implying, companies just discard that employee. Gary didn't work out. Pink slip, whatever you want to call it. Have a nice day. But what if, like we already said that the interview process is like the honeymoon. We're past the honeymoon now. We actually know about this candidate's integrity, mindset. I mean, they've been here for a couple months, but you see the trajectory of this job not working. And we often, in any sort of hiring role, people say, well, let's go let them find a new company. You don't always have to find a new company. What if that candidate who's been here for 2 months would be better for something else? In my line of work, where I find a lot of similarities between a recruiting team, and a sales team, we've often found that person passionate about our product suite, passionate about the training they went through. They were like the best in class a student, but maybe the prospecting sucked for them. They just weren't good at that, whatever that means. Okay, there's another problem we have, and before I get to that, is that if a candidate doesn't work out, we often create a story that they're like not a good person.
Yeah.
Listen, there are many good people that aren't a fit for your one role, even though your company has 350 roles at it. So you're not a great fit for that one. We found the biggest one that in my last org, as the company is rather large, we would offer salespeople recruiting roles, and sometimes we'd offer them training roles, depending on where their passion was. And and it was very polite. They didn't always say yes, but when you think about how many breakups between organizations and people are distasteful, even if they don't take it, it is a nice way to say, hey, this isn't about your personality. We think you're a good person. We just don't think you're a fit for this role. So the biggest one that we've found was training and recruiting. And I think it's respectful. It doesn't mean you have to make up a story and offer someone a job that they aren't a fit for. But there are too many people that just cast out because they didn't make it for that one of 350 different roles your organization has.
Right. And then they start the negativity and building a case against the person, which is just
isn't that terrible?
Terrible.
That we have to do that.
Why would you do? Well, I know why you're doing it. There's a few, but yeah,
there
it is
are
awful.
respectful ways to do it.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. You do it respectfully and professionally, and don't undermine that person even more than needs to be, especially when you're just trying to protect yourself. That's what drives me mental.
Right.
All right.
It's just where society's gotten to, by the way, Gary. That's not you or me.
Yeah, that's a whole nother. It's a whole.
Do you have time for our frivolous lawsuit section now? Let's go.
No, the degradation of just that's a whole nother podcast. I think even different.
That's
topic.
at the top of the hour. We'll do that one later.
All right, we'll do that. Maybe. All right, we got time for one quick closer question before we hit the segment. If a leader listening to this episode today is sitting on a hiring decision they've been delaying or holding on to a hire they know is not working, what is one thing you want to tell them to do differently this time around?
All right, so we were actually just alluding to it when we were talking about our silly thing about being disrespectful to people. I think that one thing that people are scared to do is be clear throughout anybody's life cycle of employment. So if a leader is often scared to tell someone that they're not a fit, I'm going to tell you why they're typically scared. They are typically scared to finally say, Gary, this job isn't a fit for you, because they know they have not provided appropriate feedback along the way so the candidate can improve. So many people, and let's call them people, are blindsided by the disappointment from their boss. And sure, maybe they aren't performing, but did the boss have something to do with that? When along the way, the boss saw things, and I don't know if the right word is scared, but they hesitated to say, hey, Gary, let me stop you right there. One thing I'm noticing that you're doing that could really help you out is X, Y, Z. If you would do this, I think it'd work out better for you. We don't have enough engaged feedback between people with experience and people that are struggling. And it's, even though companies have a training program, it's like, you should do my training program. You should get it right. And if you don't, we're going to fire you. You should do our training program. You should do your best. And we're going to give you direct feedback on a regular basis, not when we're at the point of no return.
No, so well said. Superly put, if that's even a word, superly.
It is now.
It's superly. I felt it. I've seen it. And I just wonderful advice. And pointing that out, I think, is very important to get out there. So,
hey, Gary, real quick, because this is important to me. A lot of my success has been from feedback. And I want to make something clear to anyone out here that's thinking, oh, crap, I do need to give that guy feedback. And you're pausing. And the reason you're hesitating is it feels awkward. People don't like giving feedback. They also really don't like receiving it. It's true.
True.
It's true. So here's my pro tip. And I don't care if anyone thinks it's silly. If I'm going to give you feedback and it makes me uncomfortable, Gary, I'm going to say it like this, because I'm like new at giving feedback. I've always wanted to, and now I want to. Hey, Gary, could I have your permission to give you some feedback that's going to be uncomfortable for me to give? But before you say yes or no, The reason I want to give it is I want to help you. And I see something. I wish you could see it on your own, but you can't. That's why you got me. Do I have your permission to give you feedback that might feel awkward, but I'm only saying it not to hurt you because I want to help you. Just lead with that. And you could start a relationship between that person that could actually go up, 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 no matter what role it is.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. And that is much more like coaching. I mean, even literally, not talking about business coaching, but even coaching. I'm back to coaching 9-year-old baseball. And that is exactly what I said to them is me and the other coaches are here. We are your biggest fans. We are here to help you. When you make a mistake in the field, everybody makes an error, everybody strikes out. You need to learn from it. That's why baseball's great, because you're not always going to meet with success, but we're going to try to help you be better by pointing out the right thing to do, rather than getting mad at you and say you made an error, you got to catch the ball, right? And I've seen that happen. I'm simplifying for business podcasts, but it's about, I will teach you the right thing to do and repeat it to you so you're better, and we want you to succeed. And because at 9, they're like, you're a big scary coach. Oh my God, coach is bad, like,
Right.
So
it's personal. He doesn't like me, right?
Well, I messed up, and you know what? Baseball is even though it's a team game, it's a very individual game, especially when you're pitching, and everybody's looking at you, right? And there's your mom and dad are screaming, grandma's up there, grandpa, and you're walking the bases loaded, and you feel awful, and so you really got to support them. But it is very similar to what you just said. All right, that was super. It was super lead on. I invented a new word, superly.
Absolutely. This has been superly time spent.
Well, let's hit the segments.
All right.
Okay, everybody, it is time for Does It Hold Water, my favorite segment. This is where I ask my guests to be our resident expert witness for the day. I read them a quote, a piece of thought leadership, and they let me know if the defense case holds water or not. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready.
I love this one. And I'm going to quote this person because I think she is fabulous. The wonderful Robin Story of Storyline Resumes runs a resume and job search company. She posted on LinkedIn. Are you ready? This topic. Oh my God. If you've interviewed for a job and had to prepare a presentation, a business plan, a marketing pitch, sales deck, or other nonsense, start keeping track of the time you've invested. Then I want every person who does not get that job to send them a bill to the company for your time. That's 20 million active job seekers in the U.S. Could be hundreds of millions of dollars in consulting fees. Maybe it'll make employers think twice about asking you for free consulting advice on interviews. Now, she's saying this facetiously, but the point is, does the defense case hold water about this practice of asking candidates to give kind of consulting advice on interviews?
I think it's very distasteful. And to answer your question, it absolutely does not hold water. It is
the practice.
The practice of asking for that, I'm not a fan of. I find it extremely disrespectful. It's free consulting, and they're tapping into it. There's a way that this company could ask interview questions to do their best to gauge if you're going to be successful for a job, other than, hey, Gary, why don't you go spend a couple hours with some, Gary, sometimes they're really asking for internal documentation from the last organization, or internal training, or internal best practices. And they're trying to, in a roundabout way, to get in the back door of where you're currently at, because a lot of people, as we already discussed, only like to hire from the industry. There's about a dozen reasons it's a red flag. You know what that flag is waving in my face? When you ask me for this prepared presentation, I immediately think, I wonder what your training's like. Are you trying to figure out if I'm trained enough so you don't have to, because you know your success rate based on your poor training is so poor, you got to make sure I'm already trained. Nothing wrong with success, nothing wrong with past experience, nothing wrong with having a conversation about that. But to ask me to prepare a deck, KPIs, spreadsheets, and a whole presentation, I think in most times, I haven't been exposed to everything in the world, that is not a good practice. I don't recommend that you accept it. And if you're a hiring manager, I don't recommend that you do it. I think you analyze your hiring practice from A to Z.
Yeah. No, I think you agree. Robin's quote holds water. You agree with Robin that this practice
I agree with
ridiculous.
Robin, even though I said so much, you have no idea what I said.
No, but and I think she says that most of the times you are not going to get the job when they ask that. It's like she had some statistic like 95% of the time you're not getting that job. They're just
asked so much, man. Like, honestly, I give speculation.
I think they're fishing for the advice. Like, I'm going to have 5 experts give me 5 different, points of view. And like I said, it's like free consulting is kind of what they're fishing for. I don't know. I haven't really had that happen to me, but I've heard it happen to a bunch of people. And she talks about it all the time. Now she knows because she runs a company that does this all day, every day.
Oh,
So yeah, I thought that was an interesting one, but I think it's a very odd practice. And how could you possibly give some sort of presentation to the company you don't work for yet? I need to know more. Like, do your homework, like we said, but again, you have to actually be in there and do some sort of research and serious investigating into how you're doing things and get some data, proprietary information, like you wouldn't have access to really come and do a thorough job. So I don't know. I just think it's really odd. And
no, but by the way, it's your question is a growing problem, in my opinion. I can't obviously say I've hacked every company's Q&A on what they do in the interview process, but I can say that people actually bring it up to us sometimes. I said the candidates should be open to ask questions. Candidates are asking us, hey, along the way, do you guys make me do any homework? I like that people are direct enough to say that. On the other side, I don't like that so many people feel obligated to say that because so many companies are asking for it.
Yeah, it's very bizarre, but I want to throw that out there. So great job on that one, and let's hit chip shots. All right, everybody, it is time for chip shots. This is my shorter form question segment where I ask more personal yet still professional questions to our guests. And we always start with the book question. What is one book, Alex, that has significantly influenced you personally or professionally? All right, he's going right to the shelf.
Smart Brevity. Have you ever read it, Gary?
No.
Smart Brevity basically says none of us are as interesting as we think we are. Take your 6-sentence email and make it 2. Take your 300-character text and make it 50. Everybody needs to tighten up because in a world where attention spans have never been more manipulated, think about social media, to have like 0.08 seconds of attention. Nobody's reading your paragraph email where you could just get to it, wrap it up. Smart Brevity. I highly recommend it. It changed the way I email, communicate, not just professionally, personally. Sometimes I send too long a text to my friends. I'm like, that's why they didn't make it to the place. I was so long-winded they didn't even find the address in it. We're all saying too much.
What? And who's the author on that?
Jim Vandelheis, Mike Allen, and Roy Schwartz.
Nice.
And what I will tell you is that the book reads just like the title. It is brief. You can rip through it in like a day and a half, giving it like 3 hours. And the biggest glaring thing when I read it is I was the opposite. And I remember first reading it and going, oh my gosh, that's me. I was the example every time where I was like, oh my God, I need to shut up. No one's listening.
Yeah. It a lot of times that happens to me as well, but it's also the reason I do a guest episode podcast because I fully recognize that I am not the most interesting person in the world, so I have interesting guests like you on.
See,
much easier that way.
Was I brief enough today? We'll find out later.
I don't. This one's running long, but it's great. And I was just thinking the same thing. I'm going brevity. This one's actually gonna be a long episode, but what the hell? That's
irony for you. Your longest episode of the year, and the guy recommends Smart Brevity.
Brevity.
Feedback to myself.
I don't know if you could top Chris Woders. We had Chris on twice. It's been over an hour both times because he's so fascinating. A CX consultant from Belgium. Great stuff. All right. So the leader question. Oh my God. I don't know where you're going to go with this one. If you could spend a day shadowing a current real life leader or professional in any industry, who would it be and what would you hope to learn?
All right. So I got a weird answer for you. If you're talking about, I could go anywhere. I'm actually going to spend time with one of my sales professionals. I'm going to spend time with the sales rep that I hired 10 years ago. That, look, you hire someone, you should train them, show them how, lead them to water. When you hire someone and they become 30 times better than you ever trained them to be. But you did your training. I have a guy in mind. His name's Andy Jacquemet. I want to give him some love right there. Andy's up in Dayton, Ohio. He's a guy that I hired maybe 10 years ago in the industry. And this guy is at the top of any sales leaderboard, sales production update. And you watch a guy come from a real long sales cycle, like enterprise software, that would be a year to 2 years. And what we currently sell is anywhere from a 2-day sales cycle to maybe a month. And he's not just been able to change from the long sales cycle to the short. I mean, he is winning in deal count. He is winning in profitability, any team he goes to. And as you're asking this question, like, sure, I could go meet with all these, I could drop some names that sound great. But when you find someone that loves what they do and they mix it with a process and hard work and resiliency, but going back, loves what they do. Like, you have him on a team call to talk about what we do. And it's like, is he selling the same thing we are? He's like smiling and he's telling us, like, I guess we all sell the same stuff. Okay. I would spend a day with Andy Giacomo, and the amount of authentic door pulls that man has made all over the country that have resulted in national accounts. People sometimes accuse him of being lucky. He just pulls more doors where everyone's looking for a secret. Everyone's looking for a shortcut around the hardest part about my gig, which is introducing yourself to new people. And Andy has found a way that it's a game, and he's always smiling. He tells a story and he's laughing again. I'm like, we all sell the same thing. We didn't give them a different product suite. It's the same business owners out there that are overwhelmed and stressed. And somehow Andy brings levity to a real stressed out part about the job. The hardest part is prospecting, getting new people in your pipeline. And it's like, when you hear Andy, we'll have him join a new hire call and talk about prospecting. It's like, I don't want to take my kids to Kings Island this weekend. I want to go prospecting with Andy. I want to spend time with someone that's able to take the hardest part about sales and make it a ride.
Wow. That is one of the most interesting, if not most interesting, answers to that question I've ever had. Someone you have actually hired in your own company, right?
He's way better than me, Gary.
Way better than you. But you hired him, right? So there you go.
Give me that credit. The rest is Andy.
You found Tom Brady.
And you know what? I'll tell you this.
In the 7th round?
I didn't even think of that. When I hired him,
he
looked fine on paper. No, I hope Andy listens to this. He looked fine. Yeah. I couldn't tell. If I had his resume right now and you blacked his name out and changed the dates, I'd say, oh, it looks fine. Let's meet him. But I remember when I met him, I was like, man, this guy's got a thing. He's got a thing. Like, when you talk to those people that like talk with a smile no matter what, and it's authentic.
Yeah.
I remember he had that. I'm like, ooh. So I always envy those people that can do that for like a 45-minute appointment that's stressful. And he's just talking the whole time. I thought, man, if this guy gets in front of people, he's going to be unstoppable. So I got that far to identify that one trait. Taking a gamble. It's always a risk. It was a calculated risk. I was hoping he'd teeter on the way of making it. Taking over the world, man.
Awesome. That is a great one. All right. Let's go to the failure question. Is there a particular failure early in your career that taught you a valuable lesson that you still use today?
Yeah. So maybe you have figured out from our short time together, you probably have like 3 or 4 listeners at this point into this podcast. It probably started off high from the advertisement. Well, I joke, but the enthusiasm that you see right here, I learned through some really tough feedback that when my young career, I really wasn't open to hearing and I was a snob about it. But when someone gives you feedback and you think about it over the next 3 days or maybe the next 3 months, someone told me that my unbridled enthusiasm sometimes is distracting to people and they don't actually hear the message I'm conveying. And at the time, I know that you want to say, you're asking, why is that a failure? Well, what really helped me reflect on it is that I had a bunch of candidates go back and tell the recruiters as a follow-up, hey, I think the job sounds great. That guy, Alex, is real passionate, but he might be a little too much for me. I had that was a theme. And I never understood what that meant. And I thought, what, they don't like my stupid spiked hair? What does that mean I'm too much? And I was in the middle of getting this, people wouldn't work for me. In the middle of that unbelievable, just terrible streak, that feedback click that someone gave you a year ago, and you're like, that guy's a prick. What does he know? And I'm like, I think that's what he's saying. And the best thing I've been able to do is that, depending where I'm at right here, we're having fun, but I've had to really rein it in after just a failure of just dozens of candidates didn't want to work to me, because I think it was a polite way to say, hey, I'm sure this guy can sell, but he almost comes off as unprofessional because he yell talks the whole time. If I could summarize, probably like 50 people who passed on the job. And, you know, if you can't hire in any situation, we're talking about hiring. If you can't hire in any, you're only as good as your people. And if you can't hire people that want to work for you, and I found that even as I have brought my enthusiasm down, whatever that means, it's all relative. People now will say that I'm the most enthusiastic and positive person in the room, but they're no longer like scared of me.
Yeah.
So the real thing was I hated receiving the feedback, but that actually gave me perspective that I should be more open to feedback. And I realized that when that person gave me that feedback about my enthusiasm, I guarantee I gave like a snooty face, like, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I want to be the person now that even if you tell me some feedback that I don't like, I want to be the person that gives you a good experience as you're giving me feedback so that you give me more. Because I think most of the feedback I've ever received was right. I just didn't want it at 2:04 in the afternoon at that moment, at that time.
2:04.
I want to give people a good experience when they give me feedback.
Yeah. No, that is a brilliant one. Thank you for sharing that. But that it's basically curb your enthusiasm. So if you wanted to start a podcast,
one of my favorite shows. What do you mean?
I was going to say you can't use that title, so it's been taken. But that's basically where you're going with it. But,
there you go. Yes, curb my enthusiasm. That is so true. Yeah, that's funny. That's good.
All
Sorry,
right,
I missed that.
That's okay. So you can't use that title. But all right. Last one. I'm going to call a little bit of an audible on one of my usual questions. My usual question is, what's one question you always ask clients that never fails to reveal something new? But I'm going to ask you, what is one question that you ask candidates that never fails to reveal something new?
Gary, it's great to sit down here and chat with you today. To kick it off, look, your resume looks great. If your resume didn't look good, we wouldn't be sitting here. Congratulations. But I really we're looking for more than just you being able to sell software, prospect, learn all that stuff. I want to learn your core. Gary, tell me a success story from your life from when you were 17 years old or younger.
Wow. Jesus. Good. That's a good one. I don't even know what the hell I would say to that. And I'm going to take a pass as host to answer. I'm not answering that one.
Most people, if you just say success story, they're going to give you a business thing. I won an award. I won a trophy. That's great. That's like the result. But when you go down to that younger age, you find some core things. And it's not a trick question that I want like they had a job. I'll say, Gary, just in case you're hesitating there, I don't mean when you were employed. Understand something that when you reflect on when you're 17 years or younger, you're really proud of that you accomplished, whatever it was. You build a fort, you do something amazing, you run a paper. I don't want to give you any more answers. What's something you're proud of when you're 17 years old? Now, here's the key. The first story they give is typically not the best. What you do is they'll tell you something, and it's like the vanilla PC one, is they're kind of feeling you out because I also want to ask a question they've never heard before. Now everyone's going to know it now because your podcast. Scratch this from the podcast. I'm kidding. But after they give,
I hope there are a lot of people listening, but trust me, you're safe, I think.
After they give the first answer, say that's an amazing story. I can see where you're proud of that. Tell me one more. It's normally the gold in the second one, Gary. You've
really?
Wet their whistle to be right. And the second one is sometimes when they're telling the story, I'd say like 30% of them, their eyes almost water up or something. Like it's where it gets real. And again, if the interview process is showing them what the organization and the training is going to be like, every company says, we've got a great culture. Do you behave or ask interview questions along the process that actually identify that so that I don't have to say our culture is special? I'm going to behave that way right out of the gate.
Wow.
That's what's important to me is your makeup, who you are.
That is super interesting. I have no idea how to answer that question. So, all right, Alex Grant, you have been a fabulous guest. Thank you so much for being on the show today. Why don't you let everybody know where they can find you?
Yes, everybody look me up on LinkedIn, Alex Grant. Just type in Alex Grant. You can type in North as well. I'll come right up. You type Alex Grant North to LinkedIn. That's the only social media you really find me at. You could also just go to north.com, go to careers. If you look for any of the sales roles, a lot of stuff will get funneled my way. But again, go to LinkedIn, shoot me a note. We'll get on the phone. We'll chat it up, whatever's on your mind. Gary, it's been an absolute honor to be here. You are an awesome host.
Oh, thank you so much for saying it. I appreciate that. But what a guest. I mean, just the energy. This is terrific. And it's an
Was it
important
too
topic.
much? Curb my
No.
enthusiasm. I heard you before.
No, it's better for me. I haven't been too enthusiastic lately myself, so this was good for me. But yeah, no, seriously, this is an important topic, and I wanted to cover it. So hopefully, people will be taking note of this, and it gets that conversation out there a little bit. And now you've got your two secret questions out there, but we'll see. Hopefully, people are watching to the end. I mean, that's why I do the segments. Hopefully, they're watching to the end. I don't know.
The good
We'll
stuff's
figure
at
it out.
the end.
It is. I love these segments. All right. Thank you all for watching Your Customer, Your Success. If you're listening on audio, don't forget there's the YouTube video. And if you're watching the video, don't forget the audio is available on all major podcast platforms. That is all for today. I'll be back with more CX leaders, customer success leaders. And like I say, I throw a few curveballs at you from time to time. Thanks for joining today. Bye for now. That's a wrap. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We hope you found something insightful that will enhance your experiences and drive your success. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a review and share your thoughts to help us improve the show. Don't forget to head on over to marracxhub.com for more ways to connect with me and learn more about experience management. Until next time, I'm Gary Marra, working hard for your customer and your success.